Most Chinese characters cannot be decomposed using radicals alone, so we turn to auxiliary shapes. Most of the radicals are associated with at least one auxiliary shape, and for the most part, the shapes bear some resemblance to the radical they are associated with. For example, yat is associated with this shape, which is just itself rotated 90 degrees. Yu is associated with a bunch of shapes that resemble itself, just without the two horizontal strokes in the middle. I won't go through all the auxiliary shapes for each radical in detail here, so I recommend keeping a copy of this chart to have as a reference. One thing I'll mention is that there are 7 radicals that are each associated with a type of basic stroke and are often used. Zhok represents left slanting downward strokes, Guo represents dots, Sap represents perpendicular crosses, Dai represents X-shaped crosses, Zhong represents vertical strokes, Yat represents horizontal strokes, and Gong represents hook strokes. Now let's take a look at how to decompose characters with auxiliary shapes. Take the character Dik. Starting from the left, we see a left slanting downward stroke, which is associated with Zhok. Next is the radical Yat. The next component is this shape, which is associated with the radical Sum. One thing to note is that in Cangjie, we aim to use the fewest number of radicals possible. In this case, even though this shape uses 2 strokes, a left slanting downward stroke and a hook, we would not decompose it using Zhok and Si, because this shape is already represented by the radical Sum. The final shape left is the dot, which is represented by Guo. Altogether, the Cangjie code becomes Zhok, Yat, Sum, Guo. Let's try the character Si. First we have the radical Yat. Next is a horizontal line, Yat. Next we have a sideways T shape, and if we look at our chart, this is represented by the radical Bo. The last component is Yan. So our Cangjie code is Yat, Yat, Bo, Yan. The character But starts with a horizontal line. Next is this auxiliary shape, which is associated with the radical Fo. The Cangjie code is simply Yat, Fo. The character Ngo starts with a left slanting downward stroke. Next is the auxiliary shape, which is associated with So. Finally, we have the radical Guo. This is another example of a Cangjie decomposition that does not resemble the normal stroke order. Zi starts with a left slanting downward curve associated with Zhok. Next is the auxiliary shape associated with Yu. Finally is the U shape associated with San. So our Cangjie code becomes Zhok, Yu, San. Ya is decomposed from left to right. We take the left side to be this auxiliary shape, which is associated with the radical sum. And the right side is this shape, which is associated with mo. This example illustrates another general Cangjie rule, which is that when decomposing characters, generally radicals should not overlap. For example, you might think that you can decompose it like this, with mo and san. However, this is incorrect because the radicals are overlapping each other. This is not the case for every character, but just keep this in mind as a general rule. Yen starts with a square on the outside. And note that the radical associated with this is tin and not hao. Tin is used for squares that enclose other things inside, while hao is used for squares that are empty. Inside is the radical dai, making our Cangjie code tin dai. Here are the practice examples for today. Try to figure out the Cangjie codes for the following characters. I will leave the solutions in the description below. In the next video, I will explain how to identify single unit, double unit, and triple unit characters. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. Thanks for watching.